Good afternoon. Today's focus topic is pauses. We're going to start by focusing on where pauses should be and why they shouldn't be in certain places that they may be, and why sometimes people may skip a chance for pauses, why sometimes they may add pauses where pauses don't need to be. And hopefully what you learn here for editing purposes will translate over into what you do live as well. So we aren't going to focus too much on how to edit out pauses. The focus of this is just thinking, why are there pauses there? Where should the pauses be? So I have a splice right here. It's a demonstration of a lot of bad pauses, and you can see how I've marked them. This spot needs a pause. This spot has a good pause. And we'll go through and talk about these.
Any kind of comfort item for the animals we're always in need of, so that's a great way to help. Newspaper.
Okay. Right there, bad pause. So that's a great way to help. Newspaper, it almost sounds like you're trying to help newspaper. Why do you think she did that? This actually, I did not edit this. This was how she said it. And I think the reason that she said it that way is suddenly the idea of newspaper hit her mind, and she wanted to throw it out there. People do that conversationally, but we need a little pause there because we don't want anybody to think that she's trying to say we want to help newspaper. So what I've done is I found a pause that she has, and I'm copying it and pasting it into that spot. That's a good way to edit pauses because it gives you about the length of a natural pause anyway, and so you don't have to worry about how fast or slow should this pause be, because I know that pause was pretty good, so it's probably going to be pretty good here. But you always need to listen back after you make an edit, so let's listen and hear how that sounds.
That's a great way to help. Newspaper.
Okay, so you can hear a breath there, and when you have a breath, there is a concern about, is the breath too loud? Is it distracting? Usually it's a good call to, if you can see the breath at all, just lower it. Now I have two views here. I have waveform view and spectral view. I can still see it in spectral view, not so much in waveform view. You don't have to get it to where you can absolutely not see it in spectral view at all, because sometimes people can hear the background noise from the room leaving and coming back. And so it's good to leave a little bit of sound.
That's a great way to help. Newspaper. We line our...
Okay, so now we come to this. Why is this a good place to pause? Well, she says newspaper.
Newspaper. We line our cat cages with newspaper.
Okay, so if you're imagining this in your head, she said newspaper, dash, dash. We line our cat cages with newspaper. So she's elaborating on her point. So newspaper is the headline, and this is a subpoint. And so that is a good place to pause, but really in broadcast what we'd probably do is get rid of the first newspaper because that doesn't add anything. So we will go...
Newspaper.
Oh, I can just get rid of all of that.
We line our cat cages with newspaper, so don't throw out your old newspapers. So, donate them to the shelter.
Okay, so here we heard an That's a no-no in production. You need to edit all those out. We'll work on that in another video. But this also takes the place of a pause. So I called this an almost bad pause because she was just running from one sentence to the other. And that's what caused this stutter.
Throw out your old newspapers. So, donate.
So if I delete these words that aren't really words, then what we have is...
Throw out your old newspapers. Donate them to the shelter.
Okay, we have two sentences running together. Throw out your old newspapers, period. With a period should come a pause. And so let me paste that pause I copied from earlier in there. I'm going to lower the audio again. And then...
Throw out your old newspapers. Donate them to the shelter.
I still heard the breath. I don't like that. I don't want her to sound like she's sucking in air. So I'm going to lower the breath a little bit more.
Old newspapers. Donate them to the shelter. Absolutely.
Especially this one. Maybe a little bit long of a breath. Let's see.
Donate them to the shelter. Absolutely.
Yeah. This is where I went from one clip in the original file to another, so this won't flow. But any breath that sounds like they're going, you want that out. You don't want to sound like you're choking them in the studio.
Shelter. Absolutely. And you can always volunteer at the shelter, too. We do take volunteers. You apply for...
Okay. Whoa. A lot of sentences running together. You can also volunteer at the shelter, too, period. We take volunteers, period. So for the periods, we need to add in pauses.
Volunteer at the shelter, too. We do.
Right here. And what you need to do is you need to zoom in, figure out where to ends and we begins.
We do.
Okay. Sadly, that's between a couple of words, so.
We do take.
You find where the waveform seems to change. And then go ahead and paste in your pause, and then listen. And if it's okay, it's fine.
Here at the shelter, too, we do take volunteers who
It's fine.
apply through the city's
Okay, but you apply is a new sentence.
volunteers who apply
So where does you start? We got to zoom in and find out.
to apply.
Oh, there's the you. So you just click a little, and if that little isn't where you need to be, move a little over one way or the other to get there.
Volunteers who apply through.
How's that
You
sound?
take volunteers who apply through the city's volunteer program. Just say that you want to volunteer.
Okay, now there's a decent pause because volunteer through the city's program. You just say, so two different sentences. The breath's a little loud, so I'm going to reduce that.
Program. Just say that you want to volunteer at the animal shelter, and they'll refer you over to us. And we definitely need more
Okay, we got a little stutter here. We need a pause.
They'll refer you over to us. And
Yep, to us, end of sentence. So just at every end of sentence, you need a pause, and the pause needs to be a decent pause. With your pause length, think about just a nod of your head and back up. That should be a general pause. Or you could try to squeeze the word beat in there, and that should be a good pause.
we'll refer you over to us. And we definitely.
Now, she stuttered. I know she said we twice, so this wave looks like itself, so I'm going to delete the first copy.
Refer you over to us. We definitely need more volunteers.
Okay. Let's see. Anything else we need to talk about? In some spots, you have bad breaths because you skipped a place to breathe. And so that comes up with her a couple of times. So make sure you pause in the spots you need to, and then you won't be breathing in the spots you don't. Another reason you may have a wrong pause is because you may not know what you need to say next, kind of like I am at this point. But you need to get rid of those pauses after the person decides what they want to say, because we don't want to waste our listeners' time. And I'm sure you won't be happy listening through my pauses later to this video. So edit out those pauses. For you, it's a simple highlight and delete, and pretty easy. And then paste in the pauses where the sentences need to be. So I hope this video was helpful for you. Now I'd like to see you note where pauses should go in some typed out sentences for you. And then you can add them to the audio in the actual file.